But I mean, is this
For
going
those
to
of you
hurt
who
your
don't know,
chances?
I fractured my shoulder 2 weeks ago and I had surgery exactly a week ago. So it's been a journey.
So is this going to hurt your Olympic career?
You know that the Jewish Sports Hall of Fame is about the size of a closet, right? You've heard that joke before, right?
Yeah, that's why I'm thinking that you might want to just try this.
Yeah,
You
well,
can get on the team, get a shirt or something.
I love it.
that's right. That's why all those people who went to France this summer, they did it just for the Ralph Lauren gear. They didn't do it to play for the country. The second Josh Goldstein is Darlene. So,
I'm trying to change it.
Darlene, you're so much prettier.
Not by much.
I think Josh is pretty.
Yeah.
I mean, Darlene's gorgeous, but
yeah, yeah.
You all need glasses, but thank you. Got it.
Let's see. I know
Thank you,
there's
Josh.
Jalen. Okay, cool.
I would take it with a grain of salt because your picture's not on, so they're just looking at your name. So like I don't know.
Beautiful.
I think you're gorgeous though, and I see you.
She is.
Okay.
All right, Sabrina, I'm ready whenever you are. Just waiting a second for it to do its thing. Okay, it says recording, so I'm going to start. Good evening. It is 7:01. It is January 16th, and it's the Economic and Community Development Committee. With us tonight is myself, council members Jim Frayer, Jalen Seed, Lisa Shanahan, Barbara Smith, Darlene Young, and Heather Dunn. So we've got full attendance. Also in attendance tonight is council member Nicole Eady. Okay. That is the roll call. Acceptance of the minutes. Does anyone want to make a motion? Councilmember Dunn. Any corrections, deletions, amendments to the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's everybody.
no, I had to step back because I wasn't there.
Whoops, my apologies.
No worries.
All right, so one abstention. Lisa Shanahan, everyone else voted in favor. Sabrina, is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak tonight?
I have not received any comment and there's nobody in the attendees list.
Okay, well, then we will open and close public hearing. Okay, so then we can move on directly to new business. So tonight, obviously, it's January, therefore it is budget season. So I wanted to give all the ECD departments a chance to sort of give an overview of their budget priorities, for the upcoming year. I know a lot of the official numbers aren't out yet, so I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse, but I just want to give everybody an opportunity to talk about their departments and their budgets. Sabrina, I guess before we turn it over to Steve, Jim, yourself, why don't we just do a quick readout? Because we did get a report from Bill Ireland.
Yes, so I can start with Bill and I can also touch on the Chief of Economic and Community Development budget as well.
Yeah.
So I'll start with Bill. Just a quick update. He wanted me to give you guys that we are currently just a couple $1,000s away from our projected estimated permit revenue number for the year. And we still have, 6 months, almost 7 months to go. So looking really good on that end. We are in line kind of what we were last year, and surpassing what we have stated our goals were for permanent revenue. So that's really great. We're almost at 4 million. The 4 million was the projected amount. So once we're at that 4 million, anything over that will be over projected, which is really great. Has to do with a lot of the large projects going on, especially the school construction, things like that. The larger projects, obviously, the larger permit revenue associated with them. So we're going to surpass our amount this year, which is really great. And as for Bill's actual budget on the capital side of the house, he has nothing. So an easy one to review. And on the operating side, there are no changes, except he wanted me to mention that the deputy building inspector, which was in the operating budget previously, but was not hired due to the hiring freeze, is now actually out for, they're actually trying to get candidates right now. It's actually up right now. So they will be moving forward on hiring that position, so that operating budget account that's been in excess previously for salaries for that position will now be used in the, upcoming and current fiscal year coming up. So his actual submission is, there's not much substantial change, but just letting you guys know that that one position will be hired and moving forward. But like I said, it's been in the operating budget, so that's all set. And at this point, I'll take any questions about that or comments about that, and then I can move on to the next. Awesome.
Well, yes,
Yeah, go ahead.
I did have one quick question. You do have somebody for the opening that was there last year?
They don't have somebody for the opening currently, but it's
Okay.
advertised.
So is there any difficulty in getting somebody for that? Or has there been difficulty?
We haven't done it yet. Like, this is the first time we're actually going out to ask for applications for it.
Advertised last.
Yeah, Steve, I don't know if you know more than me on this part.
It just posted last week, so I think it's way
Yeah.
too.
Okay. Do you expect any problem in recruiting somebody?
That I don't know. I'd probably have to talk to Bill, see what he thinks.
Yeah, from when I discussed with Bill, he didn't seem too concerned that they wouldn't be able to find a candidate. Also, Bill plans to stay on he says he feels good and he wants to stay on forever. So the plan is, even if there is somebody who might not be up to the tier that Bill is, obviously he has tons of experience, that Bill will still be on to get that person up to the level that's needed. So I think even if they get a candidate that maybe isn't, a Bill copy, they'll get to that point with Bill still on.
Okay. But we've just the ads, if you just drop the ad for it, we still have time through the rest of the year. We should find out how long it takes to get good candidates to come in there, because I'm hearing some other people that it's difficult to find some candidates nowadays.
Yeah, from my experience of hiring 2 people up to this point, almost both times we had to go back out to ask a second time, because the first pool of candidates just weren't up to the standard of what we were looking for. Thankfully, the second go at it got us some candidates. So the construction related jobs and building and code related jobs are a lot more specific as well. So they're a little bit more difficult to fill when you're talking about certain qualifications that folks need to have. But we'll see what happens. Hopefully we get the perfect person.
But I'm also thinking about whether, be frank about it, maybe our pay scale might be a little bit lower than what some other municipalities might have. And, that's good information to know. We're not filling positions because we're not paying enough. That's something we have to take into consideration.
Of course.
Good, thanks.
No problem. All right, I can move on to the Chief of Economic and Community Development. There will be a slight amount of cost savings because the position is unfilled going forward, but there are plans to fill that position, obviously, coming up. But there's no real significant changes in the operating budget for that specific position. And then for the capital side of the house, I know you are all aware and excited of the online permitting and licensing system. So we do have that capital request in the capital budget under that chief position. As of right now, myself, Steve, and Deanna from the health department are all kind of leading that charge. But the hope is that when the new chief comes on board, that it'll be we'll obviously still stay on and help, but it'll be under their jurisdiction from a larger perspective. So that will be the only request in that budget. There was originally a small business Main Streets budget within the capital request for that department as well. However, the Department of Business Development and Tourism has been primarily using that account to provide business programming and business support, small streetscape improvements, art installations, those types of things out of that account. So it has moved over into the business development and tourism jurisdiction instead of in the economic and community development chief department position. So that would be the only significant change in there. And then obviously the permitting and licensing software is a new request.
Okay, and Sabrina, why don't we do business development and tourism while you're at it?
All right, I'll keep going. The business development and tourism operating budget has not changed. You'll see probably some small increases here and there because we're now full staffed. The operating budget only has the salary of myself, as the two other positions are ARPA funded and are into the end of this upcoming fiscal year. So you'll see me next year requesting those positions if they're approved by the mayor's office, but they're not in this cycle for operating budget. So you won't see any significant changes there. And then on the capital side of the house, like I said, that small business Main Streets line item has moved over into the capital request for the business development and tourism department, but it is the same request that has been in the past in the chief department capital request. And then you'll also see everybody's favorite, the special events line item in the capital budget as well. We have been making I wouldn't say insignificant revenue, but larger amounts of revenue than we have in the past based on vendor fees, application fees for vendors and things of that nature, sponsorships as well. But all of that funding goes back into the general fund directly. So we don't, we track it, but we don't physically see, an account that specifically outlines that amount that we've made. We're probably at the amount of like $20,000 at this point, which is a significant increase from last year, which is really great. And I think as we move forward and do some more smaller ticketed events, we'll be able to hopefully in time self-sustain ourselves. But those are the two requests for me. And the only other thing I have is the Arts Commission, but we can wait on that if you want to, or I can do it now. It's totally up to you, but I'm happy to take questions.
Well, why don't we see if there are any questions on these items first?
Yep.
Or, does anyone have any questions? Okay, Sabrina, why don't you
Keep on going? It's
just
the
keep on
last
going,
one.
and that way it's not a back and forth, and then that way Jim and Steve can do their updates and
Yeah, of course. As you all know, the Arts Commission, or now known as the Arts and Cultural Commission, not only oversees arts and cultural in the city of Norwalk, but it also oversees the Arts and Cultural District, which we just got designated a few months back, finally. We're very excited to have it. We are putting guidelines in place for collecting funds and use of those funds as part of that legislation. The Arts and Cultural Commission can do those things, raise funds and collect funds. Because of that, we are embarking on our arts and cultural plan journey, which we just selected a consultant for, which I'll be tapping some of you, Heather, to oversee some of those things for us. But we're really excited to get that started in the Arts Commission, from suggestions from the commission, but also from some successes that we've had in the past. The only change you'll see in their operating budget, it's a small operating budget. It's usually only around $10,000, but they have requested a special events line item within there that will support the Artist Speaks, which I know some of you were at for our mural unveiling, but also the smaller like one-off events that they do, which are like artist mixers or meet the artists or a small activity. They plan to do one of those a month. So you'll have those requested in the operating budget under a specific line item, which is similar to some other commissions that have that line item as well for small scale events. And on the capital side of the house, there will be the Arts and Public Places request, which their focus is on the Connecticut Ave/Route 1 underpass, which is right adjacent to the Heritage Wall, and also including the Heritage Wall and the abutment side across from the Heritage Wall. That's kind of just a rounded curve. So that request will cover all of that. They also want to do Keeler Ave underpass, which is right near where the Wegmans is. That one's very small, but it would be significant considering the amount of traffic that's going to be in that area moving forward. And those are kind of the two things within the arts and public places line item that they're focusing on. But in addition to that, we are applying for an NEA, National Endowment of the Arts grant, to cover a significant portion of the mural itself, should they get approved in the budget. And there's a 50-50% match for that. So the funding that we're requesting would cover the entirety of the amount, but if we get the grant funding, we would only be using 50% of those funds for the project if we were to get the match at that level. And then the second item that they have, which has been a reoccurring request, is the public art inventory. It's been on there for, I think, the past 3 or 4 years. The last time even a stab at the inventory, which was done by a volunteer, was done in, I think, 2017. It hasn't been updated, touched. There's missing information, missing pieces of it. So we really want somebody to come in and not only catalog everything that we have, but also make it easy for us to add to it as we add to our collection, but also value the pieces. So back when we reached out to the firms that do it for Congress, the Library of Congress and things like that, we went to like the big dogs because we have the WPA murals, which obviously we cannot sell, but they are worthy pieces of art that should be documented and cataloged. They gave us a quote, and we've reached out to them every time after in budget season to see if that quote has changed or increased. And that's the two requests that they have, and that would be all for that, if anybody has any questions.
Okay, Barbara.
Yeah, thanks, Sabrina. I actually have a question on the public art inventory, because I know that the historical commission did an inventory of some aspects of the public art. How much overlap is there?
I would think
Yeah.
it's probably about a 50-50 split.
Mhm.
The Historical Commission has significant archives on the pieces that they control, the pieces that they own, and the pieces that they know about. But there are a significant amount of pieces of art that are not cataloged by them because, number one, they might be newer, or number two, they might have never even crossed their desk per se. There's pieces in the transit district, there's pieces in the train stations, there's pieces in the library. They're kind of all over the place. And we don't have one cohesive set for an inventory, but I presume the reason why our quote for how much this was going to cost is significantly less than what it would be if the Historical Commission did not do the work that they've
Got
already
it.
done.
Got
Because
it.
we did share with them that we did have some baseline. It's not like they're starting from scratch and we don't know where anything is. They do have that baseline, and we have a general idea where everything is. So it's a lot less of a lift
Got
than
it.
somebody who's never done it before.
Okay. You've been asking for this for a while.
I think it's been probably like 4-ish years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thanks.
No problem.
Thank you. Okay, Jim, Steve, I don't know which one of you guys wants to go next, so up to you.
Jim, go ahead. Swain.
You
Oh,
know
Jim,
what?
we can't hear you.
Jim, we're having a little trouble hearing you. So Steve, you're on.
Jim's speechless.
Also, sorry to interrupt, but just so you know, Stephen Ivan is here for the redevelopment agency as well.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
Hi, everybody.
Thanks.
I'll be very quick. Operating budget, we're fairly static from last year. We're at the first time in 2 years, we're at full staff, which was really good. We filled our last position about 3 weeks ago and have somebody on board. The good thing from that was it allowed us to fill out our enforcement staff. So we now have 2 people who really are full-time dedicated to inspections and enforcement, and which allowed us to have 2 dueling or two different hearing officers working on different sets of violations and things. So I think it's already made a big dent in the backlog. Funny thing is it's slow. Like I would say around July, August, we were really getting slammed with, we were getting like 2 complaints a day. So it was really hard to keep up with that volume. But then come like end of November, December really slowed down. So we were able to kind of catch up on all those inspections, kind of weed through a lot of that stuff. So I think we're in a good spot in terms of new stuff that comes in and be able to act on things right away. So I think we're in good shape there. The only operating increase that's, from a percentage point, that's significant, but it's a fairly small dollar amount, about $6,000. Norwalk participates in the Norwalk River Watershed Alliance, which is Norwalk, Weston, Wilton, New Canaan, I think Lewisboro, New York, and I think I'm missing a town, but it's basically their, the organization there. We put in 6,000, the other communities all put in, an equal amount, and they do a lot of advocacy work, research work. They do a lot of grant work for the communities, and I think Alexis had done some calculations on things before, and there's like at least a 4-to-1 get back from the money that the city puts in terms of what funds come back to us in terms of different grants and other programs. So it's a good initiative, and it just kind of makes sense. For some reason we weren't funding it for a little while, but we kind of were trying to push it back into the forefront. I'll move on to capital unless anybody had any questions about those things. Nope. So capital, we have 2 items in there. One is an open space plan, which we've had in for a while, which doesn't seem to make the final cut all the times, but that's something that we'd like to see at some point. Basically, the open space plan would allow us to kind of get a better handle on what's available for whether it's privately held or publicly held, kind of conserved open space land, and then hopefully come up with some like an action plan, being strategic with what's available for potential purchase and or conservation rights. I mean, obviously Norwalk's going to be a little limited into where and the amount of land available based on how much built environment we have, but we still think it's a really important exercise and can help with with folks like you that have to make decisions on finances for things like open space. Last initiative, which is something I had gotten capital funds for about 5 years ago, but we kind of sat on it thinking we would get more funds, but we hadn't got money available until we got some ARPA funds, which is digitization of our old land use records. So we have down in the basement, probably close to 1,000 boxes of permits between building and planning and zoning. None of those are available electronically. They're all paper down in the basement. So that's, whether they would survive any kind of natural catastrophes up for debate for sure. But the biggest problem is right now we get requests literally multiple times a day from whether they're a surveyor, architect, engineer, attorney, appraiser. They want to get older records or see what was approved on a particular piece of property. So all those records are in the basement and they're cataloged and boxed. So somebody has to go down to the basement, retrieve those boxes, pull the files, scan the documents, give them to whomever's requesting those documents. So we do that on a daily basis, multiple times a day. So you can imagine how costly and inefficient that is. So we got some ARPA funds and we pooled those with the capital funds that I had. And we are actually starting to scan, hopefully next week, on the old field cards that we have. We have 4 different years of field cards, with the oldest being 1927. So we're going to start scanning those and hopefully have that piece of the project done before the summer. The goal with all of this, and Sabrina kind of hit on this, is when we're working on going with an updated, modern online permitting process. So the end game would be we would have all these historic records that would be scanned and available, and we'd have a new online permitting system. So somebody could go online and punch in their address and really find out all the records and information available on their property, kind of be a one-stop shop. It would save the city time in terms of staff resources, but also be a nice avenue for the public just to get access to all the files on their property. So if you think about you're going to buy a house and you want to know, what was done on this property legally, because if something doesn't look correct, someone could pull those permits. They could see there was a wetlands permit in 2004, and they might see, ooh, I had wetlands on my back property. Now I have a whole big lawn. That might be a problem. So I think it's just going to be a great tool for everyone going forward. And, based on the cost, we think it's the total fees about $800,000 to do all the scanning. We have like 2.25 available right now. So we've kind of set it up. So we'll do it over a 4 or 5 year period and get it complete. Then once the new online permitting is up and running, all those records will be available digitally, so we won't need to go back and scan those. All the records will be linked together in a nice format and easily accessible. That's it.
Thank you, Steve.
Sure.
Jim.
So Steve, what kind of payback do we get on that? What kind of savings do we achieve on these?
It's difficult to put it in a monetary term, but in staff time, it's kind of invaluable. I have sometimes 2 or 3 people looking at FOIA requests for records
Yeah.
from a 1993 permit, and where's the oil tank, and what was located here, and who used this building before. So it's a real time crunch for us to go down, get the records, look at it, reveal it, try to decipher things. It'd be much easier if we just open up a folder and there was the files all related to 50 Smith Street, and we could see the history, pull those files, and the public would be able to do this on their own without coming in and having to ask us questions or have us do that work for them.
But I mean, would it be save one employee? I mean, would that? And I'm not saying that you're going to get rid of somebody tomorrow. I'm just saying that at some point in time, as the volume continues to grow, you need more people to field some of these questions and do the research. If you have it's all online, you don't have to do that. You don't have to add as many people as you will.
Yeah, I think I would say this, thinking of a budgetary and staffing level, that it would allow us to do other things that we don't get to do now.
Right.
Sometimes just organizing our own project files just is something we just don't have time to do, because you close out one project and we have to jump right into the next one. So it's
Right.
It allow us to just be more efficient. And I don't see things,
TJ Maxx, they having to sit there's
while the permit volume comes and goes based on the building cycle. I don't see things getting to a point where it's slow. I mean, our heavy projects have slowed down a little bit at the moment, but we have constant meetings with folks about new things in the pipeline. So I don't think there'll ever be a lack of work for this volume of staff I have now.
I'm just thinking the BET is going to ask you, why do you need this? Why do you need this? And I think that if we really do need it, I think we should be able to explain to them, and they're not always. And I think that really has to be spelled out in some cases to some of the members on the BET that, it's short-sighted not to put a system like this in place, because A, it's going to save manpower, and B, it's going to help us to sustain growth if we want to continue the growth that we have.
Yeah, and I think it's a good point, and I think it also dovetails with the mayor's initiative of trying to be more of a digital city versus relying on paper records for things. So it's obviously that most communities are moving this direction. Not everybody has the same resources or can dedicate the same amount of staff time or things for it, but this obviously moving in this kind of direction where all your information is available online and without having to use our I'm happy to show anybody what our office looks like on a daily basis with the volume of boxes that we have. We have half a room literally dedicated to boxes that we've requested from storage. And sometimes there's 50 boxes upstairs. So it's just kind of a waste. And there's a poor guy that has to go outside with his little hand truck in the rain and the snow and go to use the elevator and go downstairs and pull up these boxes.
And it's 2025.
Yeah.
Like, we shouldn't be doing this anymore.
We're well into the 20th century here.
Yes, that's right.
Steve, do you think that people might be more likely to pull a permit if it doesn't seem as daunting, like coming into City Hall? And are you projecting more people permitting or not?
You mean as people doing work without permit?
Building a back deck or something and not necessarily pulling a permit, but if it's easy, why not? If you can do it on,
there might be some of that, but I don't know if that would make that big of a dent in that. I think it will. It's definitely easier because I've used, like, outside of my work life, doing it for, or church or something like that, pulling permits and using an online platform. It's so much easier. You just, you scan the document or you have a PDF, you upload it, It's there, everybody can see it. And then you usually, most of the systems now, you'll get notification if and when the document's received and it's moved on to the next phase of review. They tell you what's missing, if it's not missing. But, right now, I admit we try to be as efficient as possible, but the overall land use system, actually we don't really have a land use system in terms of process. People come into this department and we tell them to go to that department. Sometimes they get kicked back to our department. If there was, one thing we're working on right now, which Sabrina touched on, is with the firm that's helping us that eventually get the right software, is they're mapping out our permit flow. So it's like, this is what you guys do now. Based on your workload and all the tasks that the individual departments have, this is how you should model your workflow going forward. And that by itself will be just a tremendous benefit to the public, because I think there's a lot of frustration. I mean, the development community gets used to things. They want, at the end of the day, they want their project approved, so they'll do whatever you ask, even though they might complain about it. But the average homeowner who's never done this before, and they just want to put on their dream bedroom suite off the back of their house, and they've waited for this for 5 years, and now they're told, no, you need this document, you need to go talk to that department, and no, you need to come back in 2 weeks. There's a high level of frustration with those folks, and it's just because they're not familiar with it, and sometimes it's justified because it just seems like a lot of unnecessary steps.
I think part of the financial aspect of that is our neighbors, constituents, do tend to think that there's a lot of time wasted having to come into City Hall, and the hours aren't always, best for them when they only have maybe a Saturday off or something and they've lost work time. So I think that's a really good thing that you're trying to do. So thank you.
And the other thing is we even saw, which I thought was slowed down, because we've been putting more and more of our stuff online just to provide more information, but there is just a high level of people that want to come in and just ask questions face to face. So I don't see that going away. I think they just like to know there's somebody there, because sometimes email can be very impersonal. And if you're very unsure or nervous, if you're making a significant financial benefit, you really want to sit down and talk to somebody. So we have, our front counter staff is fantastic, and it's just, they're right there front and center dealing with this every day. So I think that's a really important aspect of what we do.
Jalen.
Sorry about that. So I think another benefit, is just especially with a lot of these permits, the guys that's in the trade, and a lot of our neighboring towns, they're already have this system. So I think this kind of brings us up to speed to our neighboring towns, and then plus, Steve mentioned, we have. It saves a lot of time. There's a lot of times where we have to call the inspectors to schedule an inspection. It just makes it a lot easier for everybody to just be able to do that online. So I think it's definitely a win-win for the city.
Couldn't agree more. Steve, is there anything else?
Nothing. Thank you.
It's a really important initiative. I'm really glad you brought it up. And again, that's part of the reason why we do this. Jim, how's your mic?
How's my mic? You tell me.
There we go. All right, we're good.
Okay, perfect. So from a budget perspective, the operating budget is, within the guidelines that we're given. So, essentially no change. The change is just the contractual salary increases that are there. We did move some things around just to get, what we found in the course of the year that we might needed to have transferred money from one to the other. So we put forth a budget that was just, we think, a little bit more representative of what the line item that's going to get put out of, right? From the capital budget, our request is increasing somewhat from last year, but it's also relative to the work and the grants that we were able to secure. So our roadway design and reconstruction grant, our line item will be higher. That is the line item that we will do design from that we will do the smaller projects for, where we have two really signature projects, I think, that we're going to try to get done out of that, which is, Ward and Aikens and Ward, intersection, which we've continued to get some, there's not a lot of crossing on Ward, so that we're going to be able to get in some crosswalks there, and then Ward at Adam will be in there too. So there's a number of designs. We're doing out of that will be the design for the Chestnut Hill sidewalks, which we were able to secure a grant. If you saw it recently, came from Senator Duff to get sidewalks along the street. The street has been classified as a hazardous road, so that requires the Board of Ed, Department of Education, Transportation, to bus any students that live on this street that may be within the 1 mile walk shed, still has to get bused. So it'll be much needed improvements, I think, to there. That item will increase. We have a request in for traffic signal equipment. This will be used for the gap that we have for the traffic signal in front of Norwalk High School. We want to make sure that traffic signal is in prior to school opening. Our new sidewalk construction. This is items where we just identified. So, we have put in here, we're very hopeful that this one, George Avenue sidewalks was identified in the 2010 Transportation Master Plan as a priority street for sidewalks. And we failed to deliver on that commitment. We also then identified it in the 2022. So last year we were able to secure design money out of our thing that will be designed. And then the intent is to have those long-awaited sidewalks. And I think we'll have a joyous applause from the people that live there, because they call us every single time that there is a sidewalk in the news asking, when are their sidewalks coming? Safe Routes to School is again, fairly popular. We have identified some opportunities to improve, where we're seeing some challenging ways for kids to be able to walk to school. So that we will continue along that request. There is a continued request for Wall Street corridor improvements, and largely that is the design that we do in order to facilitate the grants that we've gotten. So grants are, grants cover the construction. What we've looked at for the requests coming from Capital is they cover just the construction with the anticipation that city will cover the design. So this is largely on the design end of it. We have our pavement markings and signage. We are currently wrapping up and should wrap up fairly soon. We've had a citywide sign inventory done, really identifying where our gaps in signage, particularly intersections that do not have a stop sign. These may be more rural, but they are an exposure for the city. So the signage will be coming there. And then covers our additional, pavement markings that come into play, the crosswalks, the WL center lines, edge lines that are happening there, bike lanes that covers under there as well. We move that all into one rather than that. There is also a request in for the West Rock sidewalks. So after the community meeting, we heard some comments that came from the community about the desire for some things, and we were able to modify our. So we have two grants coming out of this to make this happen: a local road accident reduction program grant that we're able to secure, and then we were also able to secure a federal appropriation from Congressman Himes. It's the local road accident reduction program that we actually sought, and we're awarding an increase that. So we need that match to cover that portion, because that does have a match to do it. But I think what we're really going to do is deliver the community there some improvements that they're really looking for, right? We have in there the gap request for the East Wall Street corridor improvement, East Avenue corridor improvements. And that was a request that was partially funded. Not last year, the year before. We need the whole thing in order to do it. There is, we have very active, vocal community up there looking for the plan. So we are looking for that gap to be done. And then there's also a gap in we were able to secure another grant through Congressman Himes for partially funding the roundabout at Gregory at 5th. So it'll be that gap funding that's not covered for the other portion of that will be also in there. And then we also have recently there was identified some improvements that are needed with a roundabout at Isaac Street that wasn't covered from part of an added development. So that gap will be in there as well. We did move some other items off the list because we recognized our grants were high, like our requests were higher than they were before. So these were really the ones that we found as the most critical components, in securing either additional funding or commitments that we've already made. So, and those commitments, like to the community, like the sidewalks for Georgia Ave, right? So that's the highlights, I think, of our budget requests. We have some outlying years that you'll see where we anticipate some future requests, but that's highlights what we're doing this year.
Thank you, Jim. Any questions? That was a lot. So always a lot happening at TMP. That was very comprehensive. So I really appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Oh, and also I meant to start off with congratulations to Barbara and to you and to Heather for your council president and your majority and minority leaders, right?
Oh, thank you.
Congratulations, guys. This is like that we have like everybody in this one committee here, right?
This is the super committee.
Thanks.
Yeah.
But don't tell anybody, even though this is on.
All right, my son.
Last but not least, Stephen Ivan.
I'm here. Hello, everybody. So we have a capital budget request in to facilitate completing Orchard Street. We've about $5 million in grant funds that have been tied to the development project going on the Pinnacle site to make improvements around there that we've gotten in unison with the development going on. With some community feedback and goals, we know that we need to make equitable improvements to the area as well. The capital budget request is to install infrastructure improvements, primarily undergrounding utilities, as well as streetscape and road improvements that will lead down from Quincy Street to Harbor Avenue, so that we have a completed street and not something that is cut halfway off between the new development with the residents who have been living there, receiving no benefit as the rest of the street is developed. I'm happy to take any questions that you guys might have for that.
Any questions? Okay. Thanks, Stephen. And obviously, if I remember correctly, the ball's also gotten rolling on the CDBG. The NOFO's out, right?
Yep, the NOFO's been out for a little while now. I believe we have applications due back on February 7th or the 11th. I can't remember off the top of my head, but they are due early February. We've been coordinating with our consolidated plan consultants as well. So we get the action plan and the con plan coming up with the next CDBG session, which we have the first meeting, I think, scheduled for April to come back to you guys for anything.
Great. Okay, does anyone have any questions for Stephen? Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Very much. So then we'll move on to the next section of the agenda.
Oh, so Chairman Goldstein, I'm sorry. I just had a question.
Yeah, of course.
There's so much work that is being done and it's just amazing. And so I think maybe for you, Jim, does all this stuff sound like it's going to be, what's the timeline? I mean, I know it's about funding, but there's so many projects going on. And if we were to get all the funding, what does the scope of time look like? It's amazing the work. It just seems it's just a lot.
Right. So, the roadway design and construction has a lot of planning dollars that are associated with it, right? It becomes the first step in getting it done, but it's also that creates the opportunity for funding, right? The traffic signal, it really has to get tied to, like this becomes there is going to be a lot on our plate this year, right? Because there are a number of things coming, right? We have the traffic signal that has to get done for the school, right? I really truly believe we have to do the sidewalk spot on George. I don't see, at some point in time, we just cannot, we're going to have it designed. We'll have it ready to go. And I think we have it. We need a commitment, right? Wall Street is, active and very active going. We're breaking down and we're starting, Safe Routes to School has, they're clamoring and these are really great passages that we have to do, the West Rock sidewalks, I heard today, we should get the confirmation from, because DOT is kind of administering it. They have to sign off on our plan. So we hear that they're going to sign off on our plan. So we'll be able to go out to bid. So that will be a project that happens. The design for the Gregory at Fifth Roundabout, we are, again, we have community that's been clamoring for this for a long time. We want to make sure that happens. And then the other one's tied to development that we have to do it. So there's a lot on the plate that we'll have to manage and we'll figure it out. But, we're going to see an awful lot of activity coming out this year. I think we had a lot this year. And I think what we did was we got some things done, but we also had a number of things that we teed up for a lot of that work to happen. So there will be an awful lot going on this year.
Thank you.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions stemming off what Darlene said, or are we ready to move on to the next portion of the agenda? Jim, so we're at transportation, mobility, and parking. So I'm going to start, we'll just do it in order. B1, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with NY Concorp to provide on-call traffic signal emergency services for an amount not to exceed $21,572.32. Account number noted. Do I have a motion? Councilmember Shanahan. Jim?
So I'm going to hand this over to
Fred.
Fred runs
Nice.
our signal division. All right. So Fred, you want to take this one?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. Well, this contract will help TMP to use the selected contractor for emergency situation. Just for example, a few years back, we had an accident in West Avenue at Reeder Street. It was an accident between the big truck and one of our pole. So everything went down. So Nikon just get involved, and in less than 48 hours, we have the temporary signal installed. So we had the contract with Nikon since 2019. That contract was over, and we went out for the RFP, and then we had two contractors basically bid on this, and then we had LATEC and Nikon, and based on the number and also the stability we selected Nikon, and we're just ready to move on with them. We already have a couple of projects ready as soon as this one get approved. Yes.
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Fred? Okay, and by the way, Fred, I appreciate the scope of work seemed very complete. So I don't have any questions as well. With that, I'd like to take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that is unanimous, so that item
Thank you.
passes. So now B2, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to enter into a maintenance agreement with the Connecticut Department of Transportation under Route 136 for Whiten Avenue from Cudlip Street to Penoyer Street. Do I have a motion? Or Jalen, are you making the motion, or was that you voting?
The motion, sorry.
Okay. Councilmember Seed. Jim?
So, sir, we recently this summer did the sidewalks on Rowayton Avenue. We included in the plan decorative crosswalks, which we're going to be doing a little bit more of. They're very similar to the one we also put in on the NRBT at Union Park. So we put the decorative crosswalks in. DOT, because that's because it's on their state road, right? They make you sign a maintenance agreement for anything that they don't have as standard DOT items. It just requires us to do the maintenance of those items, right? The crosswalks last the lifespan of the asphalt. So there's no concern, but there may be an issue where, a utility might do a utility cut, and they'll be going to be responsible for the restoration. We need to do the coordination, the request to call out. So it's just a typical item that DOT makes any municipality do on their road.
Does anyone have any questions? I know I have one, which was expected timing for this. I know that area of Rowayton can get particularly busy in the summer. And I didn't know what the projected timing is in terms of these improvements and when, residents should expect for them to happen.
So one of the crosswalks was able to make in. The other crosswalk up at Cudlip, it did not. There'll be another crosswalk that's on a local road that we don't have to do. But this one is really for the crosswalk that we installed at the end of which, and the crosswalk that we will be installing at Cudlip. We did a temporary marking for a crosswalk there because the temperatures got too cold for us to apply this product, right? So the contractor already has this on it, as part of his project, and will be doing this in the spring as soon as weather warms up. But it's not going to be really disruptive. It'll be half a lane at a time that they do, so they are always able to maintain traffic through that process.
Okay. Any other questions on this item? Seeing none, all in favor? That is unanimous. Okay. The third TMP item, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an amendment to increase the Fuss and O'Neill contract by $471,000 for additional transportation engineering and related design services for Wall Street corridor improvements, account numbers noted. Do I have a motion? Councilmember Smith. Jim.
Okay. So I'll tell it in a form of a little bit of story. Like typically for municipalities to get grants, we typically have an application. We typically have a plan already done, right? And we then take that plan and say, here, this is what we want to do. We want you to fund it, right? We were I think in part the passion that we hold for this project, the commitment from the community, what with the intent of the end result of the project, we've gotten a considerable amount of funding done. But one of the things that we also had is in the very early meetings with the community, and some of those early meetings were quite challenging, right? Because we were coming that, hey, we're going to do this. And, we had a community that had heard it from a number of times before. We found an early 1980s project plan that said they were going to do work. We didn't do it. Then we did another plan in the 90s and we didn't do it. We did another plan in the 2000s and we didn't do it. We did another plan in 2016. And we didn't do it. And then here we come in there and we're going to do it. And there's not a lot of faith that the city is going to work up to their commitment, right? So what we decided to do with this is not do the whole entire project as one plan, but to break it out into phases and then be able to start. So we broke ground on our first phase, and unfortunately the weather didn't to cooperate with us, so they'll be back in the spring, but we'll be done with phase one at the end of this year, right? And our commitment to that, well, it's a smaller section. We said we want to prove to the community that we are delivering on our commitment, right? So that's phase one, and that's done, right? we started on the environmentals and all the other aspects of phase 2. So we really have, in excess of 30% design plans for the entire corridor, right? But what we want to do now is we have a time limit on a $5.5 million federal appropriation, right? So we want to make sure that we exceed that. We got all the environmentals for that. So this would be to move the next phase of the project to 100% and give us design plans, and this will be Main and Burnell Boulevard. We also had a little bit of a challenge, which is why we didn't put it first, because we had to coordinate with the transit district on how a relocation of the bus hub would work. And they've really recently completed their operational analysis, determining what the best route is for buses. What they found is the best route was not really doing how the original bus hub was laid out. So we're actually going to have improved service with the transit district, but it also a two-way Burnell Boulevard that's going to get there, and we'll get bike connection. So that is really to bring the next phase so that we can ensure that we do not lose a grant, that we meet all of their requirements. And they're difficult in meeting the requirements. They put a lot of hoops for us to jump through. Right. But we're very confident that at this time, start getting this from 30% to 100%. We will have that done this year. And then when we wrap up phase 1, we'll be out to bid for phase 2, and then we'll be able to instantly go into that one. And that's our intent, is not wait for everything to be done. But our desire has always been, while we're in construction for phase 1, we do the design for phase 2. Then we go out to bid, we start construction for phase 2, we do the design for phase 3, right? And then we'll do wrap up with, which would be phase 4. So that's keeping the project moving, I think at pretty good momentum for where we have. And then, as these advance, it just gets us further along to solidify the funding gap that we have. And we feel pretty confident that we are on a trajectory to do that.
Okay. That's very comprehensive. And look, I mean, this is a huge and incredibly important project. And I think that I think what you're saying is absolutely right. I mean, trying to obviously demonstrate to the community that we're serious, but also taking advantage of the overlapping time.
Yep.
So I think that I want to turn it over to the committee in case any members have any questions about this item. It's a quiet bunch tonight. Without any oh, wait.
There's a lot of explanation.
Yes, absolutely.
No questions. But I was looking at the map just the other day, how you have it all laid out in the different colors, and it's really, I'm like Josh is just saying, we're all very excited about this project, and I know no one's more excited than the Wall Street community. So,
and I think this is the classic example of the kind of project where every level of government, really work together. Obviously, with our federal representation, our state representation, obviously us as local representation, and this is gonna, it's already tens of millions of dollars of improvements, really going to revitalize the neighborhood. All right, I'm sorry, this is not part of this item. So before we vote, though, I feel like it's worth asking because it's Wall Street. People are voting for the Wall Street arch solicitation you guys put out, right?
Yep.
All right, ESA, if you haven't voted, vote.
You have a vote. Voting continues until the 20th. I will give, so we don't give any indication of who's voting for what, but I will tell you that we are most excited that nearly 1,500 people have cast a vote. That is by far the largest survey that we have ever had a response from, right? So it is really, really phenomenal. Like the buzz with the Wall Street folks is amazing, because this was really one of the items that they asked for in the initial, in both of the design charrettes, right? And to actually be, for them being voting on this right now is really great. But to see that we had 1,500 respondents is pretty amazing.
And hey, maybe we can get 2,000. So everyone tell me
We're trying. We're trying. Right?
Yeah.
We have 4 days.
All right.
4 more days.
All
I
right.
responded.
So did I.
Okay, everybody
I-
here vote.
I have very strong feelings about the one I like, but I'll keep it to myself.
All right. Well, with
Can I
that in
just add
mind,
one of the things that's missing from that was that we have a beautiful arch in Matthews Park. And it doesn't seem like they coordinate at all. It would be nice to see it kind of like flow a little bit from one area into the other as we go. That's all.
Well, I think there are some of the things, right? There's like Matthews Park is an identifier, and the identifier there. We did, I think it's really challenging when you have people coming in community meetings and they people, we responded to in general the things that they asked for, like this. They wanted industrial. They wanted components to see. Iron was a big feel for them because of all the trolley tracks that were down here. So I hear you. It's always, but they also wanted a clear identity to Wall Street, right? And that was one of the things that resonated with them a lot, is that they really wanted this identity into Wall Street and have it be someplace special, right? And I think we can make everything special, right? So
okay. Seeing no additional. Oh, wait, council members. Oh, she's going to vote. All in favor? Okay, that is unanimous. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
All right, so now we are moving on to C, business development and tourism. Sabrina, obviously these are all related,
Yes. I
but
don't know if you want to move them all at once or separately, but essentially they're all the same thing, just with different square footage and
Yeah.
different amounts for the
why don't
tenant.
we do this? Why don't we move them 2 at a time? Because I'm pretty sure the first 2 are related, the second 2 are related, the third 2 are related.
Exactly.
So if, unless, I know I'm going a little against Robert Rules of Order, but I think I'm allowed to do this since they're related items. So I'm
Yes.
going to read the first 2 off. So authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute a license agreement for the use of 3 rooms, 729 square foot on the second floor at 3 Belden Avenue, Norwalk, Connecticut, for a term of 3 years with 2 one-year extension options, terminable on 90 days advance notice, for an annual fee of $4.50 per square foot, which is equal to $3,280 per year, or $273 per month. 2, in accordance with CGS or Connecticut General Statutes 8-24, refer the proposed license agreement for the use of 3 rooms at 3 Belden to the Belden Avenue to the Planning and Zoning Commission for review and report. Do I have a motion? Councilmember Shanahan. Sabrina.
All right. So I think 2 or 3 months ago, we did this same thing for the Fairfield County Makers Guild to go into 3 Belden Avenue. The reason that one went first was that was a new tenant completely. So it was a new lease. They could not be in the space without one, besides their small workshops that they were already doing on like a case-by-case basis. So they are now fully moved in. They've occupied most of the first floor, sharing that with the NAACP. And the rest of the tenants that are currently in the 3 Belden Avenue location have been there. So we're honoring essentially the same tenants that were there previously, and most of them fit within, if not all of them, fit within the mold of, what the Business Development Center is and what we do. And they also contribute workshops or activities or meeting spaces, things like that for what our business community uses and needs. So this is really just us coming to the table with the remainder of the tenants to transfer the leases over to the city, which they originally were with the 3rd Taxing District and the redevelopment agency, kind of in a hodgepodge way. But now that we have ownership of the building, we have to renew these leases, and the $4.50, I know it always comes up. That's a rate that's flat for all of our tenants that we have in our city spaces. So it's just a traditional amount that was from the Building and Facilities Committee and our building management team. So it's just a little math work on my end. But essentially with the layout of the floor plans that you have, the Makers Guild occupies the front room on the first floor, as well as one of the back rooms. The redevelopment agency originally had a small office in the middle between the Makers Guild and the NAACP. The middle room will now be used for our business development manager, who's currently housed in City Hall while the transition is happening, but will be there full-time every single day, which will be great to have full-time staff there on our end for when folks come in. And then in the back room and the back conference room, that's for the NAACP. Moving upstairs, we have the Hispanic Chambers up there, which occupy 3 of the rooms, and then the redevelopment agency occupies the other 3. Upstairs, the basement is shared in a hodgepodge, but it's ourselves and the Makers Guild for the majority of it. The redevelopment agency will be moving their storage from there to another facility. So it will just be city storage, and the Makers Guild does have some machinery down there, but most of their operations are on the first floor. So that's kind of the layout. If you add it all together, it does make a small dent in our operating costs per year. You have in the memo the breakdown of all of those costs and what our expenses for that specific facility. The impetus behind designating the $4.50 rate is that the organizations that are in the location or in any location in the city is that they're providing a service to the community. It's not just because we're the city giving them a break. It's more that they're providing a service, and they're a service providing organization, which is the impetus behind that amount. So as you'll see, again, all of these items are exactly the same, just with different square footage and different amounts. But they're all essentially for what I just spoke about. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
That was a good overview because obviously it covers and encompasses basically all 6 items.
Yes.
Does anyone have any questions at this point? Okay, so since there's a motion on the floor for the first 2, all in favor? Heather, that was a yes, or are you? Okay. All right, so that's unanimous. I'm gonna then let's do the next. We should vote on them separately.
Yes.
So I'm gonna read in the next 2. Authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute a license agreement for the use of 468 square feet on the first floor of 3 Belden Avenue, Norwalk, Connecticut, for a term of 3 years with 2 one-year extension options, terminable on 90 days advance notice for an annual fee of $4.50 per square foot, which is equal to $2,106 per year, or $175.50 per month. 4, in accordance with Connecticut General Statutes 8-24, refer the proposed license agreement for the use of 468 square feet at 3 Belden Avenue to the Planning and Zoning Commission for review and report. Do I have a motion? Councilmember Freyer, any discussion on these 2 items? Seeing none, all in favor? That is unanimous again. Last 2. Authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute a license agreement for the use of 714 square feet on the second floor of 3 Belden Avenue, Norwalk, Connecticut, for a term of 3 years with 2 one-year extension options, terminable on 90 days advance notice for an annual fee of $4.50 per square foot, which is equal to $3,213 annually, or $268 per month. 6, in accordance with CGS 824, refer the proposed license agreement for the use of 714 square feet at 3 Belden Avenue to the Planning and Zoning Commission for review and report. Do I have a motion? Councilmember Shanahan. All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, 1 motion left.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Someone, please.
I
All
was
right.
waiting for you, Lisa.
I know. It's a new year. It's a new
Thanks, everybody. That was
Sorry,
very
I misread the
comprehensive.
agenda. I thought there was one more thing that was
I
number
did too. I
7.
thought there was one
I
for
think
the
you got number 7 there, Josh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
agreed.
there was a number, so there was a number 7.
Oh, that was dropped.
It actually needed, it was able to be dropped. We checked with Corporation Counsel. It actually didn't need to come into, it didn't need to come to council for approval again. It was a date on a contract that there was a typographical issue. And there was a question of whether it needed to be voted on, and Corporation Council has determined that we actually don't need to vote on this. So that's why the item's off.
Oh, okay. It still showed up on my agenda.
Yeah, I think that there was, I know Sabrina had sent an updated agenda, but that's, and it was that was published to the city website as well. So,
So motion to adjourn.
okay, all right, thank you guys, and thank you everyone from staff for talking about their budgets. That was a really great discussion. So thank you, everybody.